Max Callahan's hands were caked with dirt as he wiped them on the side of his jeans. The evening air was cool, tinged with the smell of fresh earth and the faint scent of rain on the wind. It was just another quiet night on his small farm in rural Nebraska, a life he had come to love, even if it wasn't much. The stars above were beginning to emerge as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the vast, open skies in a gradient of orange and purple. A perfect night for stargazing, he thought as he leaned against the fence that separated his property from the long stretch of fields beyond. That's when it happened. A sudden streak of bright light zipped across the sky, fast and brilliant, trailing a streak of fire in its wake. Max froze, his heart pounding in his chest as his eyes followed the strange celestial phenomenon. It wasn't a meteor. It was too controlled, too deliberate. The object darted and swerved, then shot straight down, crashing somewhere in the far corner of the field. He blinked, trying to process what he had just seen. That wasn't normal. His instinct was to grab the flashlight from the shed and investigate, but something deep within him hesitated. It was late, and things like this didn't just happen on a quiet farm. Yet the farmer in him pushed forward. If something had crashed, he needed to see it. Max moved toward the field, his boots crunching over the dry grass as the distant stars twinkled above. What he found was nothing short of unbelievable. The glow was faint now, but it still pulsed with an eerie light. He crept closer, squinting at the object that had plummeted from the sky. It was a sleek, silver spacecraft, no larger than a small car but unmistakably otherworldly. It shimmered in the moonlight, its shape aerodynamic and flawless, as if it had been carved out of the very fabric of the cosmos itself. Max's pulse quickened, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. As he approached, a low, almost musical hum vibrated from the craft, and the ground beneath his boots seemed to tremble slightly. Max swallowed hard, both in awe and fear. He had never been one for conspiracy theories, but there was no mistaking it. This was something from beyond Earth. Suddenly, the side of the craft split open with a soft hiss. Max took a step back, his heart thudding against his chest. A figure emerged slowly, silhouetted against the strange light emanating from the ship. She was tall, graceful, and, to Max's astonishment, not human. Her skin shimmered a bright, unnatural shade of green, and her large, almond-shaped eyes were a brilliant shade of purple that seemed to glow. Her hair was silver, long, and flowing, but there was something striking about her. A hello? Max's voice came out rough, more reflex than anything. He wasn't sure if he should be running or trying to talk to this being, but his curiosity got the better of him. The alien woman blinked, her expression unreadable, before she took a step forward. Her movements were fluid and purposeful, like someone who had all the time in the universe to spare. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice musical and lilting. There was a hint of something that made her words hard to place, an accent perhaps, or a language barrier. Either way, it was clear she wasn't from around here. Max's mind raced. Lyra. The name sounded ancient, alien even. "Max Callahan," he said, trying to sound confident. What are you doing here?" "I've come to Earth," she said, her purple eyes glinting with something close to urgency. "But I am not leaving until I get pregnant." Max blinked, almost not believing what he heard. "I'm sorry, what?" "I cannot leave," she continued, ignoring his confused expression. "I must conceive the child of a human before I can return home." Her gaze was steady, unflinching, as if this were the most normal thing in the universe. "Okay, that's, a lot to process," Max muttered, his mind a swirl of disbelief and curiosity. "So, you crash-landed here, and now you're asking me to what? Help you get pregnant?" Lyra nodded solemnly, her expression not at all embarrassed. "Yes, there are enemies who will come for me. It is why I've hidden myself here. You must protect me, for the future of your people." Before Max could respond, the ground rumbled. A low hum filled the air, vibrating from somewhere in the distance. Max's heart skipped a beat as a dark shadow appeared on the horizon, growing rapidly larger. Something was coming, and it wasn't friendly. Max instinctively reached for the makeshift hunting rifle he always kept near his door, his mind racing. Who's coming? The Zarins, Lyra said, her voice suddenly grim. They are a powerful and cruel race. They seek to stop the prophecy from being fulfilled. Suddenly, a high-pitched screech split the air, followed by an explosion of energy that struck the far side of the field, sending debris flying. Max's eyes widened as the first wave of Zarin forces, clad in armor and armed with advanced weaponry, appeared in the distance. They weren't just here to capture her. They were here to eradicate her and anyone who stood in their way. Max reacted instantly. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the nearest barn. There was no time to think, only to act. "We need to get inside," he yelled, but it was too late. A dozen Zarin soldiers materialized from the smoke, their armored forms glinting in the moonlight. They raised their weapons, aiming straight at Max and Lyra. The battle was about to begin. Max's heart pounded, but a strange calm overtook him. Lyra's presence was more than enough to make him feel like there was something more to this than just survival. It wasn't just about protecting an alien princess. It was about something bigger. This battle, this moment, was the beginning of something that would change everything. And as Lyra's purple eyes met his, she whispered, "Until I get pregnant, I'm not leaving Earth." Max felt the weight of her words. This was no ordinary encounter, and whatever came next, humanity would play a central role in a galactic war unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The first shot rang out like thunder, and Max instinctively ducked, pulling Lyra down with him. The force of the energy blast was immense, the earth beneath them quaking as the alien weapon hit the barn wall, sending splinters of wood and dirt flying into the air. Max's heart raced as he pressed Lyra's small, trembling form against the dirt. The glow from the energy blast illuminated her face, her expression cold, calculating, like someone who had seen this kind of chaos before. But Max couldn't help but notice the fear in her eyes. They weren't the eyes of a warrior. They were the eyes of someone who had been thrust into a war they never asked for. "Stay down." Max hissed through clenched teeth, pushing her lower into the dirt as another blast struck the barn, its metallic walls groaning under the impact. The Zarins had arrived in full force, and they weren't going to give up without a fight. They had weapons far beyond anything Max could imagine, technology that seemed capable of tearing the very ground apart. Lyra glanced at him, her alien eyes flashing in the dim light. "You are not just protecting me," she said, her voice firm despite the panic in the air. "The future of your people rests on this. Your planet's strength lies in the prophecy." Max grimaced, trying to process what she had just said. Prophecy? This whole situation was starting to feel like something out of a bad sci-fi movie. But there was no time to argue. He had no choice now but to fight, whether he believed in some ancient prophecy or not. These aliens weren't going to stop until they got what they came for. "Stay behind me," he ordered, moving quickly toward a hidden trapdoor in the barn floor. It was an old survivalist trick he'd read about in his grandfather's journals, a hidden escape route built for just such an emergency. It wasn't much, but it would give them a few moments of cover. But as Max started to open the door, another blast from the Zarins hit the barn with deadly precision. The wooden structure groaned loudly as part of the roof caved in. A massive chunk of debris fell just inches from Max, sending him sprawling to the dirt. The barn began to collapse in on itself. "Max!" Lyra cried, her voice full of fear as she reached out to help him. Her usual calm demeanor had slipped away. The chaos of the battle was unnerving her, and that made Max's gut twist. He couldn't afford to let his emotions get the better of him now. "I'm fine," he said, gritting his teeth as he pushed himself to his feet. "But we need to move now." Lyra nodded, and the two of them dashed toward the trapdoor, sliding inside just as the barn structure crumbled behind them. They descended into the darkness, the hum of the Zarin's blasters still echoing above them. The tunnel was tight and smelled of mildew, but it was a safe haven for the moment. Max quickly sealed the trapdoor behind them and checked his surroundings. The underground passage was part of an old bunker system his grandfather had built during the Cold War. Max had never given it much thought, but now it seemed like their best shot at survival. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, Lyra pulled her strange, glowing device from a hidden pocket in her robes. The light from it illuminated the passage, revealing the walls lined with old, rusted supplies, food, water, and outdated weapons. Max glanced over at Lyra, his mind racing. You said the Zarans want to stop you from fulfilling the prophecy. But why me? I'm just a farmer. Why does it have to be me? Lyra's gaze softened as she met his eyes. It's not just about you, Max. It's about humanity. You're not just a farmer. You are the key to something greater, something that will change the fate of the universe. The Zarans fear you because you are a species they cannot control. Max blinked in disbelief. What the hell are you talking about? We're nothing compared to them. They've got tech that can blow up cities. We're just humans. And that's exactly what makes you special, Lyra said, her voice growing more intense. The Zarans have underestimated your species for far too long. They think you are weak, divided, and primitive. But in truth, you have something they do not: adaptability, innovation. You may not have the same technology, but you have something far more dangerous: your ability to think outside the box, to fight with what you have. And that's what they fear most. Max stood still for a moment, trying to absorb her words. He had always been told humanity was weak, that they couldn't stand up to the advanced races of the galaxy. But the way Lyra spoke, it was as if humanity was some kind of hidden force, capable of changing the course of the universe. Before Max could respond, the hum of alien craft grew louder above them. Lyra turned toward him, her expression hardening. They're coming. They will search for us here, she said urgently. We need to move. We cannot stay in one place for long. Max didn't need any more convincing. Then let's go. They moved through the underground bunker, Max taking the lead, relying on his instincts to find the exit. His mind was still spinning, but one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. He wasn't just helping some lost alien princess. He was part of something bigger, something that would change the fate of humanity, and possibly the entire galaxy. But even as they made their way through the maze of tunnels, Max couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a battle far bigger than any of them could imagine. As they neared the exit, Lyra stopped him, her hand gripping his arm. Max, I need you to understand. This is no longer about just protecting me. It's about protecting everything you've ever known. Max looked into her eyes, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. I get it, he said. We fight or we die. Lyra nodded gravely. Exactly. And the fight is only just beginning. Suddenly, the ground shook once more. The Zarans had found them. The battle for Earth, and for humanity's place in the galaxy, was about to get a whole lot more intense. And Max Callahan was in the thick of it. Max had never been a religious man. He'd grown up in a small town where the folks believed in the Bible, in fate, and in things like destiny. But none of that ever meant much to him. He was a farmer. Things didn't happen because they were destined to. They happened because you worked hard and made them happen. But now, as he sat in the dim light of the underground bunker, his world was being turned upside down. He had a green-skinned alien princess beside him, and his very existence was apparently tied to a prophecy that could alter the fate of the entire universe. You're not just a farmer, Max, Lyra had said again, her eyes intense in the dim glow of the bunker. The prophecy speaks of a human who will unite the races and bring forth a new future. It speaks of a child, born of human and alien, who will wield unimaginable power. And that child will change everything. Max shook his head, his mind struggling to process the enormity of what Lyra had said. I don't get it, he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. You're saying this child is supposed to fix the galaxy? You're asking me, of all people, to be part of this. Lyra's gaze softened, her eyes holding a weight that Max could feel deep in his gut. It's not just about you, Max. It's about humanity. Your people have the potential to be the strongest in the galaxy. The Zarans believe that, which is why they want to destroy me. They know what I represent, and they know that, with your help, humanity could lead the galaxy. Max let out a long breath, trying to take it all in. The Zarans weren't just hunting Lyra to control her. They were hunting her to prevent this prophecy from coming true. And now, Max was supposed to play a part in it. As if things weren't complicated enough. We need to find out more about this prophecy, Max said, standing up and pacing. If we're going to have any chance against the Zarans, we need a better understanding of what's really at stake here. Lyra nodded, her silver hair catching the faint light. I have data. Information I brought from my home planet. It's encoded in a language only I can decipher, but I can share it with you. Max wasn't sure how he felt about this. The thought of being thrust into some cosmic battle, of having to bear the child of an alien princess to save the galaxy, it was all a bit much. But at the same time, part of him couldn't shake the feeling that this was where he was meant to be. Something deep inside him told him that this wasn't just some random event, some fluke. Maybe there was something more to his life than tending crops and fixing fences. As Lyra sat at a small terminal in the bunker, the screen came to life, displaying symbols and patterns that were completely foreign to Max. It was a language he couldn't even begin to understand. But the way Lyra's fingers danced over the keys showed she was at home in this world. It's called the Unity Prophecy, Lyra said, her voice quiet but heavy with significance. It speaks of a human who will bring together the disparate species of the galaxy to fight the Zarans. It also speaks of the birth of a hybrid child, the child of a human and an alien, who will wield the power to either save the galaxy or destroy it. Max stared at the screen, the symbols shifting as Lyra worked. A hybrid? What does that mean? How is a child supposed to save anything? Lyra hesitated for a moment before answering. The hybrid child will be more than just a symbol of unity. The child will possess both human ingenuity and alien power. The bloodline of the human parent will bring adaptability, creativity, and a drive to survive, while the alien parent's blood will provide the raw energy and power needed to challenge even the Zarans' most advanced weapons. She paused, turning to face him. But there's one more thing. The prophecy speaks of a catalyst, a moment of profound change that will unlock the full potential of the child. And that catalyst is the bond between the two parents. Only if they are truly united in purpose will the child's power be realized. Max's stomach twisted. You mean me and you? You're saying our bond will unlock this power? Lyra met his gaze with a look that was part curiosity, part desperation. Yes, Max. The prophecy requires the bond to be real. Genuine. That is why I am here. Max turned away from her, his mind reeling. This wasn't just about fighting aliens anymore. This wasn't just about survival. This was about his future, his legacy, his child. If that's even what this was, could be the key to something so much bigger than anything he could imagine. And if they failed, the consequences weren't just for him or Lyra. They were for the entire human race. You didn't ask for this, Max. Neither did I, Lyra continued, her voice softer now, filled with an understanding that Max hadn't expected. But it is the path we must take. The Zarans know the prophecy exists, and they will stop at nothing to prevent it. If we stay hidden here, they will eventually find us, and they will destroy us both. You may not believe it now, but this is your destiny, Max. He laughed bitterly, running a hand through his hair. Destiny? I'm not sure what I believe in anymore, but I know one thing. I'm not going to just sit around and let them kill us. If fighting them is the only way to keep Earth safe, then we'll fight. Lyra's eyes glinted with something like hope, as though she had seen the potential in him all along. Then let's begin. The first step is to gather allies. The Zarans have enemies, too, races who are oppressed by their tyranny. We can use them to our advantage. Max looked at the map on the screen, seeing clusters of alien worlds, some of which had been marked as hostile to the Zerans. You think they'll trust us? Lyra nodded. They will. If we show them that we are united, they will rally to our cause. The Zerans will learn to fear humanity's resilience. Max took a deep breath, the weight of his decision settling over him like a heavy mantle. He wasn't just fighting for his farm or for his future. He was fighting for Earth, and whatever lay ahead, he knew that the future of humanity was now in his hands. All right, he said, his voice steady now. Let's gather some allies. As Lyra began to send out encrypted signals to potential allies across the galaxy, Max couldn't help but feel a shift in himself. This wasn't just about protecting an alien princess anymore. This was about forging a new future for Earth, one where humanity stood as equals among the stars. But the Zerans weren't going to give up that easily. Max knew that the first strike was coming, and when it did, he would be ready. Max's heart thundered in his chest as he stood by the entrance to the bunker, watching the dim glow of distant explosions light up the horizon. The Zeran forces had begun to mobilize, and their ships, massive, hulking war machines, were already descending onto Earth's atmosphere. Every instinct told him to run, to find a way to hide, but that was no longer an option. Lyra was right. Earth's future depended on what came next. This is it, isn't it? Max muttered to himself, gripping the railing of the makeshift observation post. This is the beginning of something bigger. Lyra, standing beside him, didn't answer immediately. She was focused, her eyes sharp as she watched the night sky, her mind already a few steps ahead. The world was changing rapidly, and she knew better than anyone that the Zerans wouldn't stop until they crushed any hope of the prophecy coming true. But there was still time, just enough time. It's more than just the beginning, Max, she said quietly, her voice laced with determination. It's a new era. You're not just fighting to survive. You're fighting to reshape the fate of every living being in this galaxy. Max nodded slowly, still absorbing the weight of her words. He had never asked for any of this. He hadn't been looking for adventure, especially not on this scale. He had been content with his life on the farm, with the slow, predictable rhythms of planting and harvesting. But the universe had a way of choosing its own path, regardless of what humans or anyone wanted. And now, that path had brought him to the heart of a galactic war. A new generation of warriors was about to be born. Max and Lyra's child would be the key to humanity's survival. As if on cue, a harsh voice came over the intercom, breaking Max's thoughts. This is Captain Reyes. We've received the signal. We've got allies coming in from the outer rim. They're not Zeran, but we can't be sure of their loyalty yet. Max's muscles tensed. Allies? He asked, his voice low. Who? Lyra's eyes flickered to him. The Zerans are a tyranny. They oppress countless alien species. Some of those species have been waiting for a sign, a moment of rebellion. If we can reach them, they might stand with us. Great, Max muttered, turning to the makeshift control station. So, what? We trust a bunch of alien races to come to Earth's aid? Seems like a long shot. Lyra's voice was calm but unwavering. We have no choice. The Zerans won't stop until they have wiped out every last trace of resistance. And there's only one way to defeat them: unity. We need their help. If we fight together, we stand a chance. Max nodded, though he wasn't fully convinced. He was used to trusting his instincts, but his instincts were telling him that no matter how hard he fought, he couldn't do this alone. Not anymore. All right, he said, turning back to the observation post. Then let's make sure we're ready. If they come, we make sure we're ready to meet them. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Max and Lyra worked tirelessly, coordinating the human forces that had gathered on Earth. They weren't a military power, not by any stretch of the imagination. But humanity's ingenuity and adaptability had never been more evident. People from all walks of life, farmers, scientists, engineers, soldiers, came together with one goal in mind: Survival. Lyra's alien technology, the little she had left, was integrated into Earth's existing defenses. They created makeshift weapons that combined human engineering with her species' advanced tech, turning Earth's primitive tools into a formidable arsenal. The once peaceful farm fields now looked more like a military base than a place of harvest. Max, with his deep knowledge of the land, helped set up traps and fortifications that would give them an advantage when the battle began. Through the chaos, Max saw something he hadn't expected. Hope. Real, tangible hope. People were working together. Humanity was coming together in a way he hadn't seen before. It was as if they all realized the same thing. If they didn't fight back now, if they didn't stand up for their survival, then they would lose everything. And Max, despite all his doubts, found himself believing in something greater than himself. Something bigger than just a man and an alien princess. The moment of reckoning arrived much faster than expected. The first wave of Zaren's ships appeared on the horizon, blotting out the stars above like a storm cloud. They were massive, monolithic ships with jagged edges, bristling with weaponry that crackled with raw energy. The ground trembled beneath Max's feet, and for a moment he thought the whole world might be coming to an end. But then a new set of ships emerged from the atmosphere, sleek and sharp-edged, cutting through the Zaren forces like a blade through water. These ships weren't from Earth. They were from the allies Lyra had contacted, those oppressed species who had been waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, the time had come. Max watched as the two sides clashed in the sky above him. It wasn't just a battle for Earth. It was a battle for the galaxy's future. The air crackled with energy as the ships engaged in high-speed maneuvers, flashing lights and explosions lighting up the night like fireworks. The Zarens retaliated, their massive warships firing blinding beams of destruction, tearing apart anything in their path. But the Allies fought back with unrelenting force, their advanced tactics and weapons making them a formidable opponent. Max stood beside Lyra as the battle raged overhead, his eyes fixed on the sky. He could feel the tension in the air, could almost taste the coming storm. The Zarens were not going to go down without a fight. But neither was Earth. Max, Lyra said, her voice filled with urgency. We need to be ready. The battle on the ground is just as important as the one in the sky. We must secure the outposts, or the Zarens will land and overrun us. He turned to her, his face grim but resolute. Then let's move. The ground forces, made up of human soldiers and alien allies alike, mobilized quickly. Max took his place at the front, leading the charge with the weapons they had forged together. The Zaren forces had arrived, but they weren't ready for what was coming. Max had never fought a battle like this before, but he had learned something important in these past few days. Humanity wasn't weak. They were adaptable, and when the fight came, they could stand alongside any species, no matter how powerful. The battle was fierce, and the ground shook with each blast. The Zarens were relentless, but so were they. Humanity fought with a fire and a will that only comes from knowing what's at stake. Max pushed forward, rallying the troops, guiding them through each step with confidence that came from deep within. They weren't just defending Earth. They were defending their future. By the time the sun began to rise, the Zarens had been pushed back. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The first victory was theirs. Lyra stood beside Max, her expression filled with determination and relief. You did it, she said softly. You proved them wrong. Humanity is no longer the underdog. Max nodded. His gaze turned toward the horizon, where the last Zaren ships were retreating. It's not over, but we've taken the first step. The ground beneath their feet was scorched, but Max felt something stirring within him. This was only the beginning. The prophecy had been set in motion, but what came next would define everything. And Max Callahan, the simple farmer turned reluctant hero, stood at the forefront of it all, ready to shape a new future for Earth.